Welcome to the Transformational Storytellers show. Today I have a very dear friend and a special guest with us today. Her name is Helen Hirsh Spence. Hi, Helen.
Hi, Elena. So nice to see you.
So nice to see you too. Always beautiful and bright as usual. And about Helen, well, she harnessed the strengths, power, and value of older adults and determined to reframe the narrative of aging. She founded Top 60 over 60, not 40 under 40, 60 over 60 in her late 60s, of course. And as a recognized thought leader with a longevity mindset, we'll learn about that in a little bit. Helen reminds us to never limit ourselves because of age. And I want to start by welcoming you to the show, Helen, but also to ask you to tell everyone your transformational story with our audience today. You may read it, you may tell it, and I want everyone to know what the journey was like for you.
Sure, with great pleasure. And thank you, Elena, for the invitation and for the opportunity to share the stories that I have to tell and all the work that you do with storytellers and speakers. You've been an amazing coach, definitely the best I've ever known. So, and I have to say, for the audience, that at 75, I've seen a few. So I started this, as you said, in my late 60s. So what was happening is that I had a former career in education as a teacher, as a leader. I was a secondary school principal, had multiple leadership experiences. I'm living in Ontario. I was the principal and the president of the Ontario Principals Council. Lots and lots of experience and leadership and change and making a difference in children's lives and parents and educators and so on. Traveled all over the world doing not-for-profit work. And then suddenly, really quite suddenly in my mid-60s, I felt like I lost my way. There was no particular reason, but I just felt like I'd lost my self-confidence. I felt like I was beginning to feel invisible. And I didn't know what was going on. And I didn't realize until I overheard a conversation when I was doing some work on the radio, right here where I'm sitting now. I heard somebody describing exactly the way I was feeling. And this person was being interviewed about ageism, something I never gave much thought to, quite frankly. And what I overheard, I realized was something that I had myself internalized. And I don't think, I consider myself well educated, well informed. I know about all sorts of isms. I knew about ageism. I didn't know about self-directed or internalized ageism, which is simply all those beliefs and prejudices and stereotypes and stories that you have heard over a lifetime that you actually internalize. So what I internalized was that I was past my prime, that I was over the hill, that I was too old to start something new, and I believed it. So I was disappointed, to put it mildly, that those are the stories that I had been told, and I decided this isn't okay. I knew I had lots of energy and I wanted to do more things, and I wanted other people to learn that, in fact, whatever stories they've been told that are prevalent, because, over 82% of people between the ages of 50 and 80 experience ageism on a daily basis.
Wow.
And they don't recognize it for the most part, So I made it my mission by founding a social enterprise, which I call Top 60 over 60, because I want to create an event that highlights the values and the value and contributions of older adults that are still meaningful contributions to society. I don't want to have an event where I have 50 millionaires over the age of 60. There are enough awards for people like that. I want recognition for people who are actually making a difference in everyday lives of their communities and also the economy.
Wow, that is fantastic. And what are some things that you would need to create that event? Just out of
Well,
curiosity.
so I've been working in this area for a few years, but I have never dedicated myself to actually creating the actual event. This year, 2025, is the year I want to see it happen. And I'd like to find the proper sponsors or partners to help me tell the story. So that may mean, media, press, because what this will do, just through the nomination process alone, will raise awareness about the potential of older adults. And older adults are currently misunderstood. We're all lumped together in one big homogeneous group instead of heterogeneous group. Because as you get older, you get more different. It's easy to say a toddler at 2 might learn to talk. It's less likely to say that somebody at 65, 75, 85, 95, that they have that much more in common. So we need to create a new identity. And as you said in the introduction, reframe what it means to age and differentiate between different ages, because 64 to 75 is different than 80 to 100, in terms of what you can do. But the reality is, and the research has shown, that brains continue to develop. We can be just as competent when we're older as when we're younger, differently competent, different type of intelligence, just it's hugely valuable. So today we have a demographic shift to older. We have more people over the age of 65 than we do under the age of 15 in Canada, and you're coming to the same numbers in the United States. We have a talent shortage. If we do not take advantage of the strengths, expertise, talent of older adults, employers are going to have an even bigger talent shortage, and the economy will suffer. So we have to have a huge paradigm shift societally.
Yes, yes, ma'am. I love that. Oh my goodness. You are just so brilliant. And I love what you mentioned about how it shifts. You don't have this milestone checklist for aging. That is just a light bulb moment for me. Thank you for sharing that. I'm sure our audience is fascinated with that.
The word adolescence didn't come about till much later in life, in the mid 1900s. It's the same thing with older adulthood. We need to differentiate stages, and we have to get away from all of this nonsense about generational labels, because all it does is to segregate ages when we're at a time when we need to integrate. We have more generations living together now. Sorry, living at the same time, not living together. But I mean, when I grew up, it would be amazing to have a grandparent. You can have 6 generations. Your girls have 6 generations. And they also have an average lifespan of 100.
Yeah.
Children born today have an average lifespan of 100.
Yeah.
If they remain healthy, of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
everything is shifting. Yeah.
Quite significant. The difference is quite significant.
Yeah.
And why do you think it's important for everyone to tell their stories like you're telling yours?
Well, first of all, I think that the best way, history has been recorded only recently in print. In the past, and it still is the case, it's been oral history. That's stories. So we need these stories in order to ensure that future generations get the real facts, from the sources, from our elders. So I think it's particularly important. We know from indigenous cultures that storytelling has always been of primary importance. We've lost our way in many Western civilizations by not capturing those very, very important stories. I mean, look at today, what's happening with climate change. If we'd only listened to our First Nations peoples in North America, we would be conserving our environment much more judiciously than we have. But we've let greed and all sorts of other things get in the way. And if we listen, and now we're beginning to go back, at least in Canada, we've got Truth and Reconciliation. We've got much more awareness in education about First Nations country. All of that has to do with storytelling.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that you mentioned that Indigenous aspect because I'm very, very passionate about it, and First Nations and Natives. Thank you for what you're saying, and that really makes me think about how many cultures really honor their elders.
Mhm.
So I think that the work that you do is really so essential in the world. What do you think has changed? What do you think has changed for the better as far as, honoring and listening to the wisdom of our ancestors and our elders who are alive versus the way that we're doing things now? What needs to stay? What needs to go?
Well, thank you for that question, because I think it's one of the things that most of us don't recognize. Last century, especially with the boom after World War II, our society became age segregated, even more so. So before the war, it's really as a result of mass education. If you think back to the early 1900s, late 1800s, we had the one-room schoolhouse. We didn't differentiate ages. You know, children in the 1800s and the early 1900s, nobody knew when their birthdays were.
Yeah.
It wasn't important, and you had multiple generations. If you had two or three they all lived together in the same households. So those stories were transferred very, very easily. It's only after Second World War when we had, the economics that afforded people to buy homes, um, in as individual families. And then in the 1960s, they came up with this brilliant idea of having sunshine communities in Arizona for seniors, which is a word I never use because it others older adults. But that in
Mhm.
fact, in the 1960s, Sun City was created, which was a retirement community. The belief was it was good for older people to just associate with older people or not to have the nuisance of children around. Well, we finally, as we move into 21st century, realize we lost a lot by segregating all of these generations, that we
Yeah.
need to bring them back together. And by necessity, that's going to happen in the 21st century because young people can't afford to buy homes. They're moving back with their parents. Those traditional milestones of marriage, they're being bumped up. People are coming back home after they go to college or their first jobs because they can't afford to live by themselves. They're raising families differently. Things are shifting gradually, again, by necessity,
Yeah.
because we can't afford, the extremes that we knew in the late 1900s. And that also all happened as a result of the Industrial Revolution when we had child labor laws, and then we sent children to school. And then with the automobile, it's a whole history lesson. With the automobile, we had buses, and then we could send children to high schools and junior high schools and community schools, much of which is very positive. I'm not speaking again.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but some of it had negative impacts, and that's what we're working with.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. We don't need child labor back.
No, no.
But
Oh,
it's important to learn from history and to move forward with the positive and leave all the negatives behind.
you know what the most significant thing is in this century? The World Health Organization has come out with a report about ageism, recognizing it as a health epidemic. And one of
Mm.
the best ways of overcoming ageism is to bring old elders and younger people together. And the most natural way, and they say the children that are the least discriminatory against older adults are those who've had close contact with their grandparents. So, it's like coming right back home again, right? You
I
know,
love it so much. Yes, absolutely. And what about those who have lost their grandparents? What would you say to them? How do they get in touch with some of these older adults?
well, there's so many ways. I mean, we've one of the things we've lost as well with time
Mhm.
is religion in the way in which we had it before. I mean, on a Sunday, you could probably reliably go to your place of faith and see people of many different generations. that isn't as common anymore, but we still have numbers of ways in which we can accomplish that, at community centers or in schools, bringing older adults or any adults into classrooms to integrate them, encouraging service groups and whatnot to go into centers where you will find older adults, working in nursing homes. I mean, there's so many ways in which you can do it. One of my major focuses has been and always will be bringing generations together, because I had the privilege of working in schools my entire career. I was surrounded by young people and older people, depending on my age. I had other staff members who were older than me, younger than me, all the children, the parents, the grandparents of the children, superintendents. I was surrounded, and I had to take into account all of those different ages, but it never impacted me in any other way other than positively. And I see that in retrospect.
Oh, that's amazing. What a wealth of wisdom you are. And I could talk to you forever, of course, because you are just brilliant and such a beautiful human. And the more I get to know you, and we've had precious times together
Yeah,
with
we
the
have.
girls and all of that. So I'm really, really grateful that
In
you're.
person, in
Yes,
person, not
yes,
even in Zoom. I know your girls. Yeah, in person.
absolutely. We
I've been
have
to
hugged.
Texas.
Yes, well, I hope this year we can hug again in person.
Me too.
And I encourage everyone to read your story in The Gifts of Pain. And also, you have a TED Talk online that people can Google. And I am going to have Helen's bio and where you can find her in the notes of this video as well, so that you can definitely connect with her. What is one last thing that you want to share? What is one step, if after everything that you share, that someone can do today to maybe connect with an older adult, or maybe it is to fight or eradicate ageism?
Everybody has a role to play. All they have to do is start opening their eyes and recognizing the types of ageism that everybody experiences, such as being at the counter and somebody saying dear to somebody who's older, or you look good for your age is a typically ageist example. Stop it. You look good. Doesn't have to be for your age. Call people out nicely or call them in, whatever you want to, whatever. That's one thing you can do. The other thing you can do is tell them that they can join forces with us, the Top 60, help get sponsor more advocacy by making this Top 60 over 60 event a reality.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Helen. You can find out more at top60over60.com. And thank you so much for being here today. I love you, and have a transformational day.
You
Bye.
too. Bye, everybody. Thank you, Elena.
Thank you, my love. I am so, so thrilled that you were able to make it.